As we sit here under the stars, I would like to tell you a story. A story of a time that is lost and forgotten. A time that we will never get back again. Or is it still there? And it's just hiding right underneath our noses, you could say. The truth is, I have been, like everyone else, investigating what the world is. And of course, we can only do so much physically, unless you have all the money to take off and explore. But it seems like all those millionaires and billionaires are all under some sort of control or agenda. They have some nefarious operation. Now, I've only had books and television and the internet and my imagination. So the facts are kind of there to give you guidelines, boundaries to work within. Whenever you question those things, there's always someone, whether they're in one form or another, but someone there to check you and say, hey, that's a bit crazy, right? And now we're at crazy times in the world where some people are going to vote one way or another, and some people even believe in the difference in the shape of the planet itself one way or the other. And to each one, they get upset. But I think that they're both a ruse. I think that, like politics and all that other kind of crap, it's all just stuff that's there to emotionally motivate us from one end of the spectrum or another. But I feel that this ancient story that I was told to sort of relate to you. You see, what happened was I came upon some kind of YouTube guy or something, and I think it happened during the pandemic, and I feel like a lot of people had a lot of time to go down different types of rabbit holes, take on things that they didn't really expect they would be into, or believe, or start to consider at least new pathways of thinking. I'm not trying, I don't have anyone to reprimand me for what I say, unless it's something horribly offensive where someone would, be justified. But as you know, I'm usually one for giving strange and bizarre concepts, and I admit that a lot of them don't totally make sense, perhaps, but that's not true. The more you look at what it is, you have to keep going over and over again. That's why I make these videos. It's because I am convinced that it doesn't make sense, and then I'm convinced at times that it makes perfect sense, and I spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to make these things help me. In the end, the irony is that the more you try and figure out the puzzle pieces, once you get a picture of the puzzle piece, you kind of don't look to where to put the puzzle piece. It sort of finds the correct place on its own. And I believe that this YouTube person that I was watching, he referenced a concept called Crater Earth. And I mentioned it to a few people that I know. Some people, with these kind of things, it's walking on eggshells. if I wasn't in a room by myself right now and the dog, I would, whenever spirits may be with us, hello, I would be, well, I don't know if I could, even finish my thoughts. So bear with me here, because I was going to write something down, and I wanted to do sort of like a podcast episode, but then I said, well, I've had this on my mind for a while, and I've been working on these concepts of the planets and mythology and things. We live in a strange time, people totally disbelieve astrology, or they totally believe it, or they're skeptical one way or the other. But we're seeing these sort of fractals of these factions of people open up in different ways, and for some reason humans do. See, the irony thing is it is kind of more like the bodhisattva type of concept of life. It does seem legit. The more you look at things, the weakest link is what you have to make the strongest in order, so it's more important to help people weaker than you, or to be of service to people, than it is to just be self-centered. There's an important, and the balance is finding, when to spoil yourself, so to speak, but also when to forget yourself. Be there. But so why are we being pitted into these sort of concepts? And it's funny because in this week I spoke to my best friend, and he was talking about some ideas, and I had been listening to some Terence McKenna, and it's been a while since sometimes you listen to things and you're like, I don't have to listen to that or read that for a while. It's like it really hits home, and it sends you off. I spent, in the time when I discovered types of thinking, when I first did psychedelics or something like that when I was younger, I spent the 10 years writing and chronicling a journey that's ever evolving and stuff. And when you see your kinship with these types of situations, it's very beautiful. So we can only try to give some credit to the past, not get too caught up in it, and not get too worried about the future, not get too wrapped up in that. But I was listening to Terence McKenna, and he's talking about this thing, the 0 point wave or time, and talking about 2012. And I was expecting the unexpected in 2012, and that's exactly what I got on every level, and it seems to have affected my life spiritually ever since. And it's been very difficult, but I finally found value in life and purpose. And sometimes it's easier to value something outside of yourself that's part of you, i.e. creating a child, or trying to maintain some kind of relationship to others and yourself. And sometimes I go outside and I look up at the sky and I say, I mentally and emotionally, spiritually try to actively detach myself from this world. And it's funny because the more you push, it's kind of like with the opposite, we used to say opposite sex, with someone that you're interested in, or things in the universal sense of life itself. Well, it could be with friends, milkshakes, or lovers, family, or something. When we think about things in a certain way, it's kind of like figuring out notes on a piano. When you think about something and feel something in the right way, you get a certain chord, you make a certain, maybe that's why, it's not just about learning to play piano or an instrument. It helps you with the modes of your consciousness or something. It's not just cool to get babes. It's not all about the image of things. So we have to press these keys of thought to ignite certain pathways for ourselves, it seems, right? I'm trying to describe everything perfectly until I get to the actual story. This is kind of building us up to where we were at. So, and how we end up here. So Terence McKenna's talking about the 0 point wave thing. And then my friend, later that day, he's talking about some kind of 0 point thing that he was reading about and different things, and that he was kind of, because a lot of times we like to take ideas and kind of make our own sort of system with them and find a way to help ourselves. And that's kind of really how we look at things. That's why someone like this person is my friend, because we share that, and that at one time my system was no system. I would say that's what led to things becoming complicated from the sake of choice. At one point I did ask my higher self to sort of lump all of my problems into, give me all the hard spiritual tests right now. Let me get it out of the way. And sometimes you forget that the promises you make with yourself, that you carry them out and you don't even realize it. And sometimes you live out things you don't always. So anyways, it seems like a lot of these things are happening, like we're sort of fractaling ourselves off. Is the earth round or is the earth flat? We're getting stuck in this sort of dualistic thing. That's why I made the videos recently about the planets. I spent a long time, I read it in a horoscope in a local paper once that Andy Warhol wore the same shade green underwear for a certain period of time to elicit a certain emotion within himself. Something on a subconscious level. And so I kind of had this weird notion. I said, well, what if every day you could do that? Wear like a specific color of undergarments, if you want to call it that. And so I started messing with that, and that's really where my interest began, to thinking about the days of the week, the planets, the energies. And then when you get to that point, you start, the science mixes into the myth, and then you have to find the myth back to the science. That's mental alchemy, using imagination for these vistas of our, being an actual armchair magician, whatever you really want to call it. I'm starting to have to accept that I'm not really here to do things in any traditional form, and I have to accept that first in order to move on. I was sort of ironically, so most people want to become a chaos magician. Other people want to be split from a chaos magician into a follower of Christ. I believe that there is some kind of thread, and people will call me crazy because whenever I say these things, they say, how dare you find a middle ground to these things? You have to take a side. And I'm alive because I am that proof. That's what I'm here for. That's why I do things that don't make sense, but yet they still persist in working. And why, ironically, I see other people that they believe they're doing things logically and I think are crazy, but that makes perfect sense. It's just sometimes some people get called out for things. So I feel like I must really be an artist in the sense that whenever I say something that's provocative, people have a response. You don't want to ever be someone that says something profound or interesting or anything worth saying out loud, and people just kind of, because that does happen. But at the end of the day, when people really think about you at the very bottom of there's was there a depth of interaction you had with someone where they remember oh shit, that person they really affected me, really helped me embody my perception. I think that's what great artists do. And it does take a lot of struggle of some kind, some kind of sort of sacrifices and suffering to sort of see through these keyholes of consciousness. So that's where I see the world right now, is seeing these fractals of things. I'm not becoming a minister. I became a universal minister because they offer the ability for anyone to achieve this. I'm just someone that is hands-on. I don't want to go to school. I like to read on my own. I like to be pulled by things. The perfect books always come to me. I don't need to go to... Some people need to stand in line and do that. I think we need to normalize people just accepting that some people aren't like them. And it all just runs into a materialism thing. If someone's... An easy way to spot a materialist is just to see someone who lives by hierarchies of some they have some kind of hold on that concept. But so that's why I found myself sort of in the middle of things. If I look at I just spent a lot of money on my doggy, so the credit card's maxed out. I want to clear that up so I can spend some bucks on getting a psychic reading done. There's a psychic I found that does also astrology, kind of. It's like a mixture. She lives in Greece or Australia or something, and she's really interesting. And it's funny, she's talking about Lilith, and Lilith for a man is like his dark side, and and the thing she talks about represents, it's like she's the perfect cosmic shadow side person to be explaining these things to me. I couldn't, I would love to get her service. Of course, it's the timing of expenses, but but in the meantime, I feel that there is a time to say things and do things, and it feels like we've sort of reached a pinnacle point where the gloves are off. Everyone's shooting their shot, or whatever the fuck people say. But that's what I mean, though, is we're all just sort of... I say things like that to appease something as a joke, but also someone might actually know what that means, and it might care. That's, where the people that don't come from the sources that we're supposed to be getting information are the ones who are delivering us from evil. And as a minister, I discovered that there's always this interplay of dark and light, and that what these worlds are always missing is someone who's right in the middle. Those people are always hidden, and we know that. We see the middle players, and they become controversial. And it's difficult because it makes people want to be like, well, if I don't stand on that side and that side, then I'm in this middle thing. And I don't think that the middle thing should be a group. I think it should be a way of being, a way of thinking, a process. Taking all these aspects of ourselves, realizing that thinking, doing, being, having, these are all different bodies, and in different realms of our consciousness we are there doing that. And sometimes, we forget that stuff. And I think that's what I'm trying to do, is make a way make a pathway to uncovering that, where I'm going, okay, like I said in the video previously, today's Sunday, who cares if it's represented by the sun? I could discard that, but I also know that represents the beginning of the right side of my brain, the logical side, the side that causes me trouble. And then there's that left side of me. And that's where the astrology thing I was trying to get to. In my 10th house, and your 10th house is your career, I have what's called a yod, where you have 3 or more planets all in that one house. And in my 10th planet in my house of my career, of where I take place in society, regardless of what I try to think, do, or don't do, I could sit here like a statue in my living room and never move. I would still find myself possessed by this energy and attracting this energy, and it's circulating through me and out to the world and the people and bringing it back to me and back and forth. And whatever I do gives to these people. That's why I thank you for forever listening and forever being there, because it means that you're part of that wave and we are not alone. And the most important thing is, that we stay true to ourselves, but there's that balance, that dance, like I was saying before about, do we choose to be self-centered in this moment, or is it a good time to be of service? So self-centered service is kind of this strange middle ground. So, we all have to kind of be the ministers of ourselves. When I was younger, my cousin formed a rock band, and I would go to the shows when they first started, and I would go out there with a tambourine, and it kind of, just the way it happened, it kind of happened incidentally, but then I kept going out there with a tambourine at the shows, and when they did these shows, I would bring in more crazy effects with it and have more fun with it and get the audience into it and help them build an audience. And they had dubbed me the rock shaman, right? And that lives in the lore of my past. And the allure of that is that at the time I was just sort of late to the game, discovering that all this time I'd spent writing and doing all those things, it kind of matched up with other types of artists that I was into, writers and musicians and poets and blah blah. And I realized that there's this sort of thing with me, with the way I live my life and the way I work, the way I do things. And as the last ditch resort, you go to astrology, you say, what the fuck's going on? Maybe something here in the chart can explain this. Well, it turns out in the 10th house of career is what I would feel. See, people know what we naturally say is, oh, it's ruled by this, but I think it's more than that. If anything, it's like the days of the week. It's like the precession of the sun and the moon, which might be the same thing to some people. I don't know. What I do know is that we are in some sort of carousel. That's, the whole thing of Plato and the cave and everything. And that carousel has different layers. And these layers, we have different bodies that we exist in there. And sometimes these bodies, we leave them for good, and sometimes they're always there. There's a difference between an eternal body and a physical body. We might have inhabited, maybe that's what they mean by reincarnation, You've been incarnated in different types of physical bodies, but that means you're just a spirit that's incarnating within time itself. So the question is, we just don't know the entrances and the exits of our time on the world stage. That's why, like in wrestling, it's like the ring of hell. It's the ultimate ring of hell. It's the center stage. Center stage, they have the whole, it's not like a stage in a theater where you sit and you watch the performance. That's very platonic, or platonic. that's like Plato's cave, right? They might be acting it out on the stage, but it's like they're the puppets, that you're watching. You're just the spectator. But then in a wrestling match, it's the center ring. You're in the ring. It's like the circus. Bring us back again to this carousel theme. There's the carousel, and then in the center of the carousel is the center of hell. The center stage. And I think that center we call hell and all that stuff. That is what this place is. But the thing is that we have to remember, everything as above, so below. Everything gets mixed up, right? So I think that if we were to conjecture for a moment what that YouTube guy was talking about, the crater Earth thing that I had mentioned before, the world's not round, the world's not flat. The Earth actually might be some sort of type of, they'll say like the Earth actually isn't really totally round. It's like a spheroid or whatever. It's kind of wobbly or whatever. Well, what this guy was saying is that, what if that planet that we call the Earth, which just does exist, we do have a planet in space, in the solar system, and imagine this planet is so big that there is, say, a slice of Swiss cheese. There's just, if you were to wrap a slice of Swiss cheese around just one piece over a giant bowling ball, imagine the bowling ball is the size of, or is the planet, our planet Earth. So it's not denying that there's a planet, but it might be relating to the bowl shape that ancient maps used to reference, that we were like living inside of a bowl, like a terrarium, you'd say, and like a crater. And and this guy like mapped out some crazy stuff, and it's really fascinating to conjecture, simply because it got my imagination going, thinking about other things that he was postulating. And I hope that someday he hears this. He probably never will, but I don't know if he still peruses YouTube, but I know he disappeared somewhere. He's getting a little too close to the truth. But see, that's why the secret of every writer is to hide the truth within fiction, right? They don't want to tell you that, or something. I mean, what else? Why is it that, like, there's that new meme or that joke out there now where it shows the early depiction of a dinosaur, and you're like, it looks funny looking. Looks like a bird with like a chicken with bigger wings or something. And then you see like the depictions of how it goes through the stages of being more reptilian. And then now the way they depict what dinosaurs really look like, they look like, it's kind of like the early depictions way back in the day before they ever described dinosaurs was dragons, and then all of a sudden they're saying, well, maybe these dragons weren't, maybe these dinosaurs were just dragons, like they're synonymous, because now the pictures they show us of what dinosaurs look like this is the true form of dinosaurs. They're not as reptilian as we thought they were. They have more feathers, and suddenly people are suddenly supposed to agree to this. And suddenly you're supposed to abolish all the years we spent brainwashing our youth. I remember walking into the museum and they said, this is a T-Rex, and it was this big, oh my god, it was amazing. You're telling me that was just like, I don't know, just promotion for Jurassic Park or something? We don't get flagged for that. So, in this crater Earth theory, he's more terrestrial about it, and he brings in different historical people like Crazy Adolf and all that kind of stuff, and Walt Disney and things like that. So that's cool, and I'm interested in how he perceives it. That's interesting. But where my perception takes it is thinking that there's one more element that's missing from all these legends and these lores, and that's the hollow earth theory. I don't know if I've really ever talked about it since, but when I was first doing my podcasts early on, think that it was in like 2022, I think, when I first started, and I was using an Anchor app, and I was putting it on Spotify, and I had randomly been looking into the Admiral Byrd, BYRD, the Admiral Byrd conspiracy, you could say. And he flew to Antarctica, went into a hole that went to the Earth, was led by aliens who had been in an ancient race, and they said that humans are crazy for, our version of humans are crazy for living on the surface of the planet when we could be living on the inside of it, but people are being kept from living inside of the planet. And that's where the hollow earth theory, in the modern time, not ancient time, I don't know about that. But so that time I was doing a podcast about Admiral Byrd, I had sent away for like a map of Antarctica at the time, and I should have gotten a better kind of detailed one. It was kind of more, it was just something that kind of, jumped out at me for the time. But for some reason, including the poster, they sent it with like a picture, and the picture was of Admiral Byrd. I think it was around the time after he'd come back or before he left to go to Antarctica, I'm not sure. And I'm doing this podcast episode, and out of the peripheral of my eye, it looks like there's like a, like if there was like rain on, like in movies when they show someone who's like invisible with rain on them or something. It was like if I saw that, but in like a clouded, rainy form, but it wasn't wet or anything. It was just visual. And I saw it, and it looked like a hand went and knocked the picture off of, like, I had it on this ledge, and it was securely on there, and it wasn't, I'm not just saying this to sound cool, because I really was spooked, and I wish that that when the Anchor app got bought out by Spotify, I had to relinquish all those episodes. And at one time I also changed a lot of my format, so I deleted a lot of things at the time to kind of restart my podcast before I wanted to get into more of the visual aspect of it. And I felt terrified because it looked like this kind of ghost of a hand knocked over the picture, and it didn't seem like it was something like Admiral Byrd saying, hey, thanks, Matt, for talking about me. It was more like knocking him down on the ground, like that's the impression I got, was like, I don't know if he was really a good guy or a bad guy, honestly. I don't know. I'd like to believe he was a good guy, but maybe there was some malevolent energy or force that was trying to, like, deter me or something. I don't really know what it is, but it really freaked the crap out of me. And I had the chills, and I did the podcast after, but I remember being really shaken up. I had to, like, smoke a cigarette after. I was kind of bugged out. So when you mix in the hollow earth thing, and if you think about it, if we were to be in a crater, like a bowl, and someone was to climb to the very tippity top of the iceberg, supposedly ice wall, as they say, right? You would climb on top of that ice wall, and you would look and you would think that the earth is flat, because, I mean, in a sense, the top of where our, there's probably, I mean, in this theory, you would say that there's probably some, like, our atmosphere is like a dome. I don't know about a firmament. I don't know anything. I haven't tested that. I don't know. I don't fucking have rockets. But what I would think it would be more like something like Wakanda in Black Panther, where you kind of go through the bubble. It might not be hidden so much, but I mean, to us it looks like it's hidden because the sky, I mean, it's just incredible the sun is so bright that during the day we don't see anything, but when the sun is on just the other side, we see a lot. It's pretty crazy if you think about it. And that lasts for 12 hours, that split. So again, the carousel, the Earth is the carousel, right? But, some people say that the Earth and the Moon are a bit closer. I don't know. I would say that perhaps the idea of these craters, perhaps we all have our own sun and moon. It's possible. On this bigger Earth thing, it might be like, what if, and then here's to go really far out there, what if we lived on this big planet type thing, and what if when we talk about these other planets that surround us, or the ones that we know of that are close to us in our solar system, what if those are really, there might be something that's really physically out there, like the way that we see, like in photos, but a lot of that's like artist rendering, right? So it's hard to know what a real photo of that stuff looks like. It's always a composite image of some kind, they say. So it's very misleading, which is really detrimental, I think, to our concepts of what space might be. So if you believe in the fact that the government may be hiding something from us, and it's not that it's round or flat, but maybe we are inside of this crater, and maybe all the other planets that we talk about, we always talk about Mars. Maybe that's like because it's really close to us, and it's got more like terrain that's not as the what you could say is the bubble, the atmosphere that is encased in that bubble around that crater, sort of like a snow globe. This is why I think that, like the Bible got the idea from that. So it's not that the Bible's right, but it got the idea from these kind of this globe-esque concept. And that would make it, we are in a globe, because in a sense, the crater is the bottom half of the globe, and it might not be a perfect sphere. I don't fucking know. But this is the theory. This is the outline of where the Crater Earth guy, if you look him up somewhere, you'll find him. But, to take this to a mythological place, so to speak. So imagine that these holes, these craters, all these other Swiss cheese holes, and now, like I said, maybe the entire bowling ball is covered in this Swiss cheese. I don't know. Maybe, just maybe, let's just take a slice of cheese and zoom in on it, and that's our slice of the cheese. And if you took a slice of that Swiss cheese and put it on a bowling ball, that slice is us. And one of those craters on the slice of cheese is us. Maybe the one closest to us is, the closest crater to us is Mars. Right? And that's why we're always like, oh, we just sent something over. Maybe it's not so difficult to do these things as they're saying. I don't know. Maybe landing on the moon just means that they landed on the actual Earth. They got out of the crater and landed on the Earth. That's what landing on the moon is. That's the moon. That's what they call the moon. What we see in the sky is the moon. Maybe that's like, yes, it's a natural satellite. Well, what's a satellite to us? Well, it sends signals and blah, blah, blah. So there's something, and they always say in science, but they never really talk about it, is that it's almost like they, something, zoomed our moon here. If our moon wasn't in the sky, the perfect place it was, we would all be fucked up right now. But because that moon is just at the specific point, and if anything goes completely out of whack to a certain degree, we're screwed. But for some reason, that moon just happens to be there perfectly, and we happen to be in this Goldilocks zone. I don't think that was just an accident. That seems like a design. Something put that there. These things happened for a certain reason. But I don't think it was put there in the sense of like a child playing with toys. I think it would seem more like a natural occurrence, just a phase of something. Sort of like when you eat something and then you get gassy. It's just a response to something natural. And whatever our consciousness has been expanding as, and in forms of understanding itself. This is where we find ourselves. But again, we're splitting, we're fractaling, and we're stuck between rounds and flats and bowls. And then, so we find ourselves in this concept of the crater Earth theory, saying, okay, so imagine if these other planets, so-called, we just call them that for now, it's, you have to send rockets to get up and around. Well, what if the greater distraction is that we don't have to send rockets to get up out of our crater and into the other crater, right? We're not going to visit that way. What if, this is where it all kind of, ironically, this is the bow that ties underneath the package, the bow on the bottom, is what if the hollow earth theory is true, and if we go inside the earth, what if there's all these tunnels that connect to the other craters from the inside that we're being kept from, and each crater is connected to another crater, just sort of like, like in Caddyshack, the moles all connect to each other through the holes. We can make a sprinkler system. We're always enacting these micro and macrocosmic interrelated things. We always forget how interconnected it is. Like I was saying, we don't just think, feel, and see things and whatever. Those are literally all states of being, and we are in the, supposedly this is the densest body. This is the densest realm. It only gets lighter from here. Maybe getting into that hollow earth world, we'd have to die, and then you enter, and then you can go and enter in another way or something. Maybe that's just the purpose of it, is that we're not, if you're born of flesh, you're not supposed to go in there. Maybe, I don't know. They do say that all the other planets, like Venus and stuff, it would be uninhabitable for a person with a human body. But we can hang out here on Earth pretty well, even though, I have a little bit of French in me, but my Irish side freaking gets burnt up in the sun, whereas someone with beautiful Nigerian skin would, it's amazing the way we have adapted in our genes, and being human is an amazing thing, and yet it's overlooked because of all the bullshit that's created. Again, those are the grand distractions, the great distractions that we're seeing. So so what do we do if there is this amalgamation, this hidden ancient story? Maybe that's why, when you think of, Tartarian things, it relates, TARDIS is related to the hierarchy of hell. And some conspiracy theorists will say that this realm is like the lowest form of heaven and the highest part of hell. So maybe, the thing we always think about the soul is that we always feel like we're locked, being here on Earth, we feel like we're locked into being here. Then you have a dream, and you dream, and you feel like that could last forever, and some dreams feel like they do last forever, or you could really just get lost there, but some part of you is compelled or gets thrown back to here. And how much do we always long to stay? But when I was listening to someone on an old Art Bell Coast to Coast do the mathematics of the time of how long, basically 1 month of our time here is how much time you get on the other side before you have to kind of get 30 days of human time, and it might feel like an eternity, maybe to some extent, on the other side. But you get that amount of time before you have to kind of transmigrate somewhere else. It could be another crater, another actual planet. Maybe there's other planets, other craters. That's what they mean by these, I don't know. I think it's something that is great for the imagination to question, to wrap our heads around, to think about things a little differently, because I gotta wonder why when I look at old maps, things don't add up and they just say, oh, that's ancient or that's old. But yeah, but ancient people all they determined all this crazy stuff before we're just figuring it out now. We don't even have things correct. For some reason, we're being told by people who are incorrect that they are correct, and we're believing, oh, well, they said they're correct. But everything's proving that that's not true. And it's like, how long can the people that live in denial stay alive? Living here. And the thing is, maybe that's what they mean by the meek shall inherit the earth. If being overly aware gets you out of this place, what are we afraid of? Think about it. What are we afraid of? So, I guess that's like a podcast episode mixture of a possible ancient story of the future. I don't know, maybe someday we'll be told of these ancient secrets, that could be told to us that we just don't know, that's hidden somewhere. For some reason, things don't add up. There seems like there's something, and that's why it's kind of like the way I figure, okay, again, I'm going to approach it like everything else when I'm using my correct thinking. Like if you look at religion, say, and you go, well, I don't know if I should just believe in just one thing. I feel like it's not like I just want to pick and choose, but I feel like these things all have some kind of, like, that's why I'm a universal life minister, because it's not that I can pick and choose and say, oh, I don't like the rest, but it's like each one has clues to something, and each religion is like a map that you take through the journey. Every religion is its own book of the dead, and I feel like I was kind of just put here for this experience. Like I said, I feel like I was inadvertently born a chaos magician, and I think we all are in some way at times. At least certain people of my generation and different people, other generations are different. It's kind of like little croppings in different ways, in different forms. And it's crazy because a lot of seeds that you can see of yourself and others and people and other people you see out in the world around you, a lot of times it feels like you're interconnected, and you might not even know it, they don't know it, but at the same time you see people that are in your life, and so you see parts of yourself, good or bad, and I always say now that we spend a lot of time sometimes with the wrong people to try and figure out how to get to be ourselves, be by ourselves, to be ourselves, to be yourselves, to be by yourself, to be by yourself, to be with yourself. But then after that certain point, if you can repossess your thinking correctly, the right circumstances and people can find you. Sometimes it's just better to not worry about what's next or who's next, but just exist with what is. That's also a beautiful state as well. I like just there's a certain aspect to the human where if we just have like a really, I don't want to say pet because that's a terrible term sometimes, but if we have that, there's a certain animal that will come into your life. It could be several, it's not always just one, but it's like it comes into your life in a family sense. It's like becomes like a relative to you. It might not even be yours that you take care of all the time, but you see, but they'll become these like totemic signposts in your life. A relative's dog or a cat or something you see on this, on a trail or something. It's interesting how certain things will, like animals come into our lives, and we think we're so great because we think, but really, it's kind of like I was saying before about the whole Bodhisattva thing, where their whole concept is you leave the door. The Bodhisattvas who are aware that they're not totally aware, but they're more aware than the others, they sort of trick like in a positive way, they trick the average common person or conventional person, traditional person, when they step off the carousel of life and death and say, hey, the exit's over here, you can ride for as long as you want on the carousel, but over here is the exit to go. It's kind of like the Truman Show. If I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. At that point, he's not talking to us. He's talking to just we're witnessing him. Again, the whole Plato cave thing. We're witnessing the theater. But him, Truman, is in the center stage of hell, and God guy is the spectator looking down on the whole. He's the Ed McMahon looking down on the whole event. He's watching the wrestlers and the audience, power. I just feel like, but yeah, these Bodhisattvas, that's the whole thing, is they see this, they see the carousel, they see the wrestling ring, they see the theater, and it's incredible that they hold the door open and they let the average, just the regular person, the person who needs to be enlightened but doesn't realize it. And that's why I'm speaking to you, because you're not someone who I'm telling to become enlightened. I know that you do that in your own way, but I know that we all need these sort of counterpoints. And that's what I'm here for. That's, I hope that you do what you need to do for yourself, big or small, whatever it might be. That's, that again comes to the whole fluctuation of things, I can remember one time when I was in a psychedelic, going through a psychedelic experience, and it was very more of a meditative, I wasn't, a couple of times when I'd done it, I was hanging out with people. A couple other times I'd done it, I was at a party. I wanted to experiment with different situations. And this one time was I was hanging out with the family cat, and I remember I just kept, holding my hand out straight, like you would, rock, paper, scissors, and doing, holding it out straight like paper, and then making a fist, and then holding it out, and then making a fist. And I'd turn it over and look at it, and I'd reach it out towards me, and I'd pull it out, I'd make a fist, reach out, and I had that very simplistic, almost I felt like a spiritual toddler, but it was amazing, or even like an infant, but like an infant with a, consciousness, where I was like, this is everything, where everything's in and out, the fluctuation of things, the intercourse of life, literally how we get here, the gateway. Everything is this, the Ouroboros, and that's it's really freaking crazy. I don't know what to make of it. I keep investigating it. I hope that, like me, you take these notes that that's why I try to make the videos in a sense, give some detail, some context to, how to make use of these ideas. Because without it, without our systems, without our spiritual kind of, bowling bumpers, if we don't have that to kind of guide our ball, to guide our, we need that for the planet itself. No matter what that planet is, no matter what this planet is, no matter what this realm is, what did Tesla mean when he said that this is more of a realm than a planet? He didn't even use the term planet. What does that mean? That's why I would be inclined to think that we would be encapsulated in a sort of atmosphere, and beyond that atmosphere, we're, I don't know. There's so much to it that that's not claiming to know it. I'm just saying that it's important to step out of duality, and it's important to step out of duality. I speak about that a lot, but I think that that's something that I battle with myself. But what compels me to do this, with, like I was saying, with the whole astrology thing, to kind of wrap this up, is that one part of me, and I feel like this kind of relates to how I feel throughout the whole day, right? So one part of me is ruled by this Saturnian Capricornic energy. So it's kind of interesting because Saturn is the 10th house, so it's like it belongs there. So Saturn, the planet of discipline. Okay, so that's sort of why a lot of the things I find myself interested in life is always involved in these disciplines, whether it be a trade for work, or a martial art for recreation, or music. It's all these, learning to play music. It's finding discipline. But my form of discipline, though it would be effective, was very unorthodox. And where I was deriving this from, the unorthodox, would be from the planet Uranus. We have Uranus on the board. So this isn't Family Feud. So and Uranus is the planet of rebellion and things crumbling to have to build back up. And that's a difficult thing, because when you feel cornered in like a job, and you're like, this isn't a good enough career, you want to go and you crumble that and you go to the next thing to figure out yourself. You're not just working to make a wage, you're trying to figure out what business you are. What's your business here on Earth? And the funny thing is, you realize that it's not about career, but profession. You want to find out what your best profession is, what you profess on this earth. And so with that, you find yourself professing your truth. And the third element that kind of is Neptune. Neptune is, ruler of the arts and the seas. What's the ocean? The mysteries of the ocean, So that's where the mythological part of me comes from. So there's this minister, this author, this writer, this poet, a sort of third elusive element that I seem to have a hard time finding. Maybe I'll find it sometime. Until then, this is Mythyw Myth, signing out. Enjoy.